The 24th Red Cross International Humanitarian Law Moot presents Understanding the Situation Between Manistan and Setistan, Prosecution and Zara Smith. Part 1. Background to Manistan, Setistan, and CERN. The democratic state of Manistan is known for its technological advancements and is composed mainly of the Manu ethnic group. Its neighboring country, Setistan, is a constitutional monarchy that possesses abundant minerals and an agricultural base and is composed mainly of the Seti ethnic group. However, the province of CERN in Manistan is mainly inhabited by the Seti ethnic group and had been formerly part of Setistan. Both states possess nuclear weapons and have acceded to the Rome Statute, as well as the key IHL treaties listed in Annex 3. The Great War erupted from 1950 to 1955 due to mineral deposits, causing near-total destruction of the Manu population in the border region, though no individuals were prosecuted. In 2005, Setistan peacefully transferred CERN to Manistan to reconciliate, becoming an autonomous province within Manistan. As Setistan's poorest and scarce province, CERN had long been viewed as a burden that required substantial government investment to sustain its economy. CERN remained under the federal authority of Manistan while managing its own internal affairs. The Manistan government did not invest in CERN's development, leading to economic decline and local resentment. Part 2. Discovery of resources and rise of the FSP. CERN and Setistan's relationship worsened after valuable deposits were discovered near CERN town. President Zara Smith of Manistan stated in Parliament that the resources belonged to all of Manistan and announced her intention to extract and sell them without input from or preferential treatment for CERN. In response, many Seti residents in CERN held protests throughout CERN town. By September 2022, Governor Gomez of CERN began building a grassroots movement to persuade the Seti community that they were being marginalized by the Manu majority. He established the Free Seti Party, FSP, on June 1, 2023, and declared himself as its leader. The party advocated for the rights of the Seti and supported the idea of CERN reuniting with Setistan. The Manistan Parliament then outlawed the FSP as it grew, criminalizing any advocacy for succession. To reinforce his stance, a successful national referendum was held to prohibit the unilateral succession of any Manistan province, followed by constitutional amendments to that effect. In response, Mr. Gomez condemned Manistan's oppression of the Seti population and resigned as governor, claiming that he would continue to fight for the Seti through alternative means. Part 3. FSP attacks and creation of the Scorpions. From February to April 2024, the FSP carried out a campaign of violent attacks in an organized and anonymous manner. To respond, President Smith declared war on the FSP and established an elite armed unit, the Scorpions, with the objective to dismantle the FSP by locating its members and disrupting their operational capabilities. Part 4. Operation Snake Elimination and the Interrogation Regime. In June 2024, the Scorpions identified Gomez's hideout in Lenesra in Jurgen province. He was living in a 2-level apartment with his wife Natalie, their 10-year-old daughter Fatola, and newborn baby Lana. President Smith authorized the Scorpions to conduct Operation Snake Elimination, during which the Scorpions fired shots that killed Gomez and Lana, while Natalie and Fatola were taken into custody. President Smith announced to the press that Gomez had been lawfully killed as a combatant during armed conflict, expressing regret over the deaths of innocent civilians. In response, Stan Rogers of the FSP accused Manistan of executing an unarmed man and an infant. He announced that he would replace Gomez as the head of the FSP and continue its bombing campaign. Operation Snake Elimination led to the capture of over 30 suspected FSP leaders in CERN, who were taken to Vala City for interrogation. When they provided no information, President Smith ordered Attorney General Derek Cinder to approve aggressive interrogation methods. Cinder unilaterally approved the techniques and communicated that approval to the Scorpions, despite warnings from the Ministry of Justice lawyers. The detainees were subjected to the harsh regimen from 29th of July 2024 for 5 weeks, experiencing significant physical and psychological distress, though medical notes indicated most effects resolved quickly. Post-release accounts varied from describing the experience as mentally unbearable to merely harsh or temporarily beneficial. Part 5. Setistan Support, Conscription, and Protected Persons. On 1st of June 2025, President Smith travelled to The Hague to appear before the ICC, charged with 2 counts. On 2nd of June 2025, FSP launched an overwhelming surprise and sustained offensive and drove the Manistan Armed Forces, MAF, out of CERN. FSP established control and expelled remaining Manistan officials without violence. An investigation by Manistan's Military Security Intelligence Organization, MMSIO, concluded that Setistan had played a decisive role in FSP success by providing them with weapons, funds, training, and military advisors. President Smith accused Setistan of conspiring with the FSP to steal CERN and its resources, stating that Manistan could no longer clearly distinguish between FSP and Setistan. She announced mass conscription of able-bodied men aged 25 to 35, selected by random lottery under the Military Forces Act 1999, to prepare for a campaign to retake CERN. The Act created exceptions but provided no exemptions for conscientious objectors and no alternative to frontline service. Refusal to serve carried up to 5 years imprisonment. As per President Smith's direction, conscription began in July 2025. John Jones, a 26-year-old Manistan citizen of Seti ethnicity, married to a Mani woman, was conscripted. He believed CERN should have the right to secede and rejoin Setistan, and regarded the FSP's armed struggle as an inevitable consequence of Manistan's policies, despite being skeptical about their violence. He answered the conscription call mainly to avoid criminal penalties and a criminal record, despite a low desire to fight the FSP. Another was Simon Strober, a 34-year-old dual Manistan-Setistan citizen, born in Setistan but a Manistan citizen by descent. He lived and paid most taxes in Manistan, but owned property and partially paid taxes in Setistan. With plans to live together with his Seti fiancée in Vala City, Strober visited Alara in Setistan regularly. Despite fearing his safety, Strober served and was deployed regardless. In view of Manistan's conscription drive and facing the prospects of an upcoming attack upon CERN, Rogers issued a call to Setistan to come and assist the Seti in CERN. Prime Minister Estrada, the leader of Setistan, obliged, and on 1st of September 2025, he sent the Setistan Defense Force, SDF, into CERN. Shortly thereafter, the FSP were integrated into the SDF in CERN. President Smith denounced this and threatened military action against the SDF in CERN and against Setistan itself, leading to skirmishes along the border between CERN and the rest of Manistan. Part 6. Nuclear strike in the Setistan Desert. On 9th of October 2025, the FSP and the SDF crossed the border from CERN into Manistan and proceeded to capture Jurgen province, thereby forcing the MAF in that province to retreat to Vala province, while MAF forces in Vala province managed to stop the FSP and SDF advances. On 14th of October 2025, President Smith convened an emergency cabinet meeting and raised the possibility of using nuclear weapons to defend ourselves, asking for options that would minimize casualties. The chief of the MAF reported intelligence that the chief and the heads of the Setistan Defense Force, SDF, would travel in a convoy through the Setistan Desert the next evening. The Setistan Desert was uninhabited due to its harsh environment and residual radiation from past nuclear tests, though short-term human presence was still feasible. It was the principal habitat of the daemon gazelle, a once critically endangered and a culturally and religiously revered animal in Setistan. President Smith approved using an exact replica of the Little Boy atomic bomb that was used during World War II to target the SDF convoy while avoiding civilian casualties, despite Attorney General Cinder's unease and in the absence of a full written legal opinion. The bomb was dropped over the Setistan Desert and exploded mid-air, which destroyed the convoy and killed the entire SDF leadership. Radioactive fallout was largely dispersed into the atmosphere, with ground contamination dissipating significantly over the next 10 weeks. President Smith publicly confirmed the strike, stressing that the targets were quintessential military targets and that the attack caused no civilian casualties or damage to civilian objects. Prime Minister Estrada condemned the strike as a heinous, unjustifiable environmental crime that would result in mass killing of the holy daemon gazelle, but behind the scenes, he ordered Setistan's forces to slow offensive operations and dig in. Part 7. Siege of Elvos and Starvation Policy. At the same time as the nuclear strike, Manistan Armed Forces, MAF, began to advance into Setistan and eventually came to hold a large area of Setistan territory while driving out armed resistance. However, the MAF faced resistance in the town of Elvos, where its citizens actively supported the Setistan Defense Force, SDF, within the town by housing them, providing them with food, maintaining their weapons, and acting as lookouts. Manistan forces completely surrounded Elvos, controlling and limiting the only entry and exit points. The MAF invited Elvos to surrender, promising to respect international humanitarian law, but Setistan refused and threatened a bloodbath upon a ground assault. Manistan initially allowed humanitarian organizations to bring resources into Elvos, subject to superficial inspection at checkpoints. But on 27th of October 2025, unguided rockets began to be launched from Elvos towards Vala City in Manistan every 2 to 3 days, and were unable to distinguish civilians from combatants. This resulted in the deaths of over 1,550 civilians, with no combatant injuries or fatalities, and spread terror among the population of Vala City. Investigations revealed that missile parts were being smuggled into Elvos within the supplies that Manistan was allowing to enter into the town, where they were then assembled and fired towards Vala City. As a result, the MAF imposed a new policy, mandating thorough inspections at all 3 checkpoints into Elvos, which significantly slowed the entry of critical supplies, including food and medicine. President Smith was notified of the consequences before the measures were put into place, but accepted this as unavoidable in the circumstances. After 5 weeks, shortages in Elvos became severe. Photographs and videos of malnourished people and patients in medical facilities dying for lack of medical supplies surfaced. Simultaneously, the rocket attacks from Elvos ceased. When questioned about using starvation as a weapon, President Smith denied, implying media manipulation and blaming Setistan's refusal to surrender while emphasizing that the rocket attacks had stopped. The inspections continued until 5th of February 2026, 5 days after the ICC had issued a second summons for President Smith regarding Elvos. Part 8. The charges against President Smith. After these events, President Smith is further charged with 3 counts. Firstly, for the conscription of John Jones and Simon Strober into MAF in July 2025, she is charged as an indirect perpetrator with compelling protected persons to serve in the forces of a hostile power under Geneva Conventions 4, 1949, and Article 25, subsection 3a, and Article 8, subsection 2a5 of the ICC statute. Secondly, for the nuclear bomb attack at the Setistan Desert on 15th of October 2025, she is charged with ordering the international launch of an attack with the knowledge that such attack will cause widespread, long-term, and severe damage to the environment, which is clearly excessive in relation to the concrete and direct overall advantage anticipated as a war crime under Article 8, subsection 2b4 and Article 25, subsection 3b of the ICC statute. Thirdly, for the situation in Elvos from 28th November 2025 to 5th of February 2026, she is charged with the intentional use of starvation of civilians as a method of warfare by depriving them of objects indispensable to their survival, including willfully impeding relief supplies under the Geneva Conventions was a war crime under Article 8, subsection 2b25 and Article 28, subsection 2 of the ICC statute. Together, these counts allege President Zara Smith bears individual criminal responsibility for key decisions in Manistan's conflict with the FSP and Setistan.